Here we go. Episode 1, Outside the Lines. Tucker deCamp. Give us a little bit of introduction, who you are, where you're at, what you're doing, what you enjoy doing. Let's hear it.
All right. Currently working as a engineer for the DoD, working in nuclear engineering. Just got into this. Was originally a mechanical engineering degree, and always been interested in energy, solar, nuclear, and other sources. So it's kind of like one of those jobs that you don't think you're going to get, but you end up getting, and really happy with it. Really happy with where I'm at up in Seattle area. It's a little bit cold. Used to that California, Hawaii weather, but kind of liking it. It's growing on me, so I'm enjoying
You're
where I'm
definitely
at.
the smart friend that got into had a nice little job in the private sector and was like, no, I can do. Let's play around with nuclear energy. Let's do that. Sounds fun.
Yeah. I think the other job was just not panning out in the way that it was a very niche job in audio and sound, and I wanted something a little bit more broad. So ended up here and definitely liking it.
Of course. So like you and I both have like interesting backgrounds when it comes to work. We both worked at kind of like now you work at a massive corporation in a sense, like you work for the government. So like
Yeah.
there's red tape everywhere. I used to work at Fox Racing, which is a massive company, red tape everywhere. And like,
Yeah.
so we both understand that part. Give us a little bit. How did you kind of come into the realms of talking business and stuff like that with me? Because I'm in like the marketing and business field in the private sector. I'm in real estate, things like that. But you're, like we said, talking with atoms and nuclear energy and stuff every day. How did you get into business too?
I think it's always been an interest. I actually originally went into school with the intention of getting a finance degree. So numbers have always been my thing. Obviously went a different route, but kept that interest, and a big time real estate guy. Grew up around construction and real estate. So I've always been interested in that. And, you were that one guy who kind of came up with, who freely talked about that stuff and really enjoyed sharing ideas, going back and forth, and coming up with something good for our futures. So
Yeah, it's not every day that people are always kind of in their 20s talking about real estate and doing all kinds of setting each other up for the future and things like that. So let's
yeah.
kind of give a little bit of background into your financial past. Like what were your parents big into finance? Was like let's give me this kind of like the rundown on that. Do you have any
So
mentors growing up with finance?
not necessarily. I would say that, my dad definitely pushed real estate sector. He owns a construction business, so that's pretty much a lot of what he knows. So learned a decent amount about that, track homes, a lot of residential, not a lot of corporate or big real estate or anything like that. So got a lot into that, but definitely parents shied away from stocks and portfolio investing. So that was something that I had to come into on my own, and I think that was something that came with understanding the numbers. I think that you go into some things and you're like, yeah, I can understand this math, but then you look at the stock market, nothing makes sense. So I think it kind of interested me, the challenge. And history wise, what I've gotten into a lot is just mostly portfolio investing, trying to diversify, get into emerging markets, get into new things. And obviously we can talk all day about S&P stocks and blue chip stocks, but I think that the exciting one, something to get into when you're younger, is that new market and something that's coming out, and to be a part of and roll with. And that's something lately that I've been trying to do a lot of research on and understand better, because as much as I am, a nerd in certain ways, I guess that Not much of a computer guy. So, big thing as of lately has been trying to understand the AR, augmented reality, and virtual reality, and where that market is going, and where they're going with the technology. It's really interesting to see, but it's also a big thing where you need to balance the excitement of, you know, companies coming out, hey, we got this, and understanding bandwidth issues to where, there's going to be a lot of lag behind the excitement of what everyone puts out and what actually is going to be, and the acceptance of the market itself. I think is a really big thing, is understanding that a lot of these are not as accessible in a financial sense. So that is something that I've been really interested in as of lately. But yeah, I'm really, as we talked recently, into certain types of real estate, including rentals and parking lots, something that's like a little bit low barrier of entry, and I think that would be something that I'd be really interested in getting into, because I think that's something that can be a really good launch pad for something new, because I think that a lot of people really get into real estate just based off, oh, okay, I'm going to start out, I'm going to buy a house, and that's what I'm going to go with. And I think that something that I'm really interested in, I think that you follow the same scheme, is that to diversify that within real estate, because I feel like a lot of times people get caught up in homes and everything like that. And I think that it's something to be into, to want to nourish that need for everybody to have. And I think that that would be a solid investment and something different for us who are, younger, not as much capital in the bank, and
Dude, it's a
got to
lot,
work
yeah.
at it.
Especially like when you're younger, like I've obviously my story, so like 100%. The biggest thing growing up with me was I had parents who were they invested in 401k, and they did the whole like little bit in the stock market thing, but like the biggest thing, they weren't like big risk people. They're kind of slowly put your money away, save money, that's all you need to do. And then there was like devil's advocate was my grandfather, who very well, who was the big person, and like you have to invest here, and like him and I worked on kind of doing flips and projects like that within Huntington. So definitely I got my feet wet early with that one. But the biggest thing that you touched on was kind of understanding your market and knowing what you can invest in. Like we don't understand crypto or things like that. We can have that could be a big topic that we can talk about the next time. But it's something that I have absolutely no idea about. So that's one of those things where what good is it for me to throw $10,000 into it? I can't even buy a full coin at this point with Bitcoin.
Oh.
What's that money going to do for me if I don't know what it's going to do?
Yeah, I think that, well, that's one of the biggest things, is I think nowadays, especially this year, huge growth in non-professional investors with apps like Robinhood and stuff like that. And I think that is
Oh,
always a joke, but
Robinhood boys.
YOLO options on Robinhood. I do think that a lot of times, the market and the investors who go into it, there a lot of speculation, a lot of trading on sentiment, and I think that you can get lucky a few times, but at the end of the day, it's maybe a step above sports gambling. And I think that a huge thing is try for me is trying to grow my knowledge base. And every day when I sit down, spend a little bit of time reading about some business or some emerging market, growing that knowledge base. And it's more than just, hey, if I understand this, I can make a quick coin, but understanding where our world is going, and the progress that's going to follow with it.
I think it's one of those things where you kind of have to do your own research, and things for, at least for on my end, I did my research, and I don't know that many billionaires or wealthy people that got rich strictly on commodities and kind of trying to trade those kinds of things. So I mean, they stick to buying businesses, buying real estate, and those kinds of things. So that's kind of where I think I'll focus on, instead of just throwing my money into a furnace and things I don't know about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a huge thing is really getting into your niche and focusing on one thing, cuz I think a lot of times people think that, they get really excited and you're going to get into multiple sectors and you're kind of stretched out too thin. And I think that, it's great to diversify, but at the same time, there needs to be a balance of what are you an expert in? Because, jack of all trades, master of none. You're not going to get anywhere if you're just spreading it out and shotgun approach, I guess you could
I mean,
say.
like, invest in what you know. Like, that's as dumb as that sounds and as simple as it sounds. Like, invest in things you understand. If not, you'll lose a ton of money.
Yeah.
Done that too many times.
Yeah.
Yes, let's get moving on in here on that on that wave of things. What are some like investments, or like we talked about, or similar side hustles that you've been enjoying at the moment, or you have kind of big faith in that will emerge in the future here?
I think that, as I briefly mentioned before, the one thing is looking into the rentals in the parking lots. I think that, that it's not the sexiest investment, one could say, but I do think that it is a good opportunity to have, it's low management necessity, I guess, you could say, and something that you can just kind of learn with and like grow with, understand a little bit better. Not a lot of maintenance, not a lot of repeating costs coming in. I think that, you got your initial cost and everything like that, but not a lot of keep up, and not a lot of dealing with, people coming to you. We talked about HOAs and dealing with people. And I think that that's a huge thing, is understanding that, Murphy's law, what can go wrong will go wrong, and trying to and trying to mitigate those risks. And I think that that's something that I'm working towards, putting money towards, and just putting my knowledge towards. So to the point where, when I come around to the point, fiscally, where it's a viable option, that I understand, every corner that I can, going into it. Cause, something that I've learned is, with the internet, I think back in the day, a lot of times it was like on the job training, with a lot of things that you get into, you got to do it by experience and you just got to roll with the punches. But I feel like with our access to information, if you really put in the work, you can have those moves ready when things come around.
I agree. Yeah, that's like a big thing we talked about, was the more you deal with people, the more chances of things that are going to go wrong. I mean, I'm huge into multifamily. I believe in multifamily investments, apartment buildings, things like that. There's people who buy in the Midwest and the Northeast that have to deal with snow, and then the pipes are busted every couple of years, and people clog toilets in the dead of winter. What plumber's going to come out and fix that? Like, there's a lot of things that can go wrong in that sense. And that's why we talked about, like you said, parking lots. I'm a big fan of self-storage.
Yep.
You don't deal with a lot of people. You set up recurring payments with people. They forget about what they're paying for. It's not like not to sound scummy or skeezy, but like I've dealt with, in my company now, that we have massive amounts of paper that we just sit in storage units that we forget about. It's a recurring charge of $500 every month that we're paying
Yeah.
to store things that we don't even know what's in there anymore.
Yeah. And
So that's
people
just how it kind of goes.
people really like to keep things. I know that's something of myself, things that they have no sentimental value, but you think, maybe I'll keep that. And everybody does that. And some people are worse, hoarders. But I think that everyone has that tendency to keep something and rather than sell it or trash it or get rid of it. And eventually, that has to go somewhere. Not everyone is going to want to have a stack of things in the corner of their living room. And I just think that that's always going to be something that's necessary because, let's be real, space is getting more limited, especially in metropolitan areas. It's going to keep getting smaller and smaller. So I think that that is something that you brought up a couple conversations ago that really triggered something for me. Was like, wow, that is something that, I already had that thought of the parking lots, that it relates to that. And I think that it hits a good market. And like you said, it is a recurring payment. And a lot of times people forget about it, but a lot of times, even if they remember it, it's something that they need, and you got to provide.
I agree. We have subscriptions. I was going to chime in, but we always forget about some subscriptions that we have, but we end up paying them, and we need them on a daily basis. Like, I don't know, there's it's one on my phone right here, like Evernote or like Linktree that I like pay subscriptions for. Like, I pay a few dollars a month, but it's adding up over a couple of years now. Like, they've gotten hundreds of dollars out of me at this point.
Yeah, I think that I've gotten in that situation too. When my short DJ stint, shout out to my plug. No, but I had SoundCloud Go Plus for a while, and kind of job rolled around and started, didn't have enough time to get around to that. And sure enough, I started my job September, and then I noticed late November, what is this, and I was cleaning up finances and trying to streamline everything. And sure enough, I had it, and I looked at it, and even worse so, I had two accounts. I didn't even realize.
Oh no.
This is where the smart Tucker, dumb Tucker comes into play, where even on two different things, running a charge of $20 a month, I didn't even notice because it gets lost in all those things. So if you're not paying attention, a lot of people don't even look at the bank account, and they're like, I don't want to see that number.
I have to kind of do that periodically as well. Like, my like bills, things are like that on auto pay. So like when I check them once a month, I'm like, what am I spending X amount of dollars on with my subscription? Like, what's happening here? And even not so much subscriptions anymore, just like things we have laying around the house that I got rid of. I had 4 or 5 extra microphones for some reason, like just over the years adding up, like upgrading things, and just kind of, I was like, oh, I might need it later, I'll just keep it. And then I was like, why can't I'll just sell this on eBay? Like, what am I doing with this?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, we've gotten apps that have made it easier. And I'm one of those people is, okay, I don't use this, I'm going to get rid of it. And I go through the process, and I'm like, this is so, I'll wait 3 days after I have the idea to actually sell something, because like, I don't want to take pictures of this thing and write a description. It's like the easiest thing ever. Still don't want to do it. So I think a lot of people, are probably like that, to where they just, it's easier to keep it and just stays.
That's true. So to the other side of the coin, though, I mean, like our friend group gets into like the weirdest things of how they're making money, how they're doing things like that. Like, I definitely take the cake as of late. I've been slanging Pokemon cards on eBay, bro.
Wow.
It's been super funny. Like, I was big into Pokemon a while back, and obviously like the craze, I'm sure you've seen it, like has been going crazy with people have been buying stuff left and right. But I managed to go to a local guy, and he sells like at wholesale price. I've been just slinging boxes of Pokemon cards well above asking price of what I'm getting it for.
Yeah.
And people were buying it, which is insane to me, man. Like, a box of 36 packs of these things, I get them for $150. They're going for 550 a box on Amazon, but on eBay and Amazon actually. But like, who wouldn't do this?
I don't know,
It's
man.
that
Talk about
easy.
long-term investment when you're a kid and you're like, I'll keep them later, just
That's
making
the other
cash.
the big one. I came back recently. I went through a bunch of like old baseball and basketball cards. I had a Kobe Bryant card that I had sent in and get graded. Yes, rest in peace,
Wow.
Kobe Bryant. Came back, gem mint 10. Oh, PSA graded everything. So I got it from a $5 pack. It's now worth like $2,000.
That's
So
amazing.
I'm not gonna sell it, but that's just one thing. Like you never really just never know what you have around your house until you like go through certain things and then decide the power of flipping things is crazy.
Yeah.
I think the biggest one we had next. What? How long are we in here? 25 minutes. So what was the dead startup or business that you thought would have a chance again in the future here?
So I kind of had a hard time opening that page that you sent me.
Yeah,
So I was hoping that you could,
or just a different idea that you had here.
well, I think that,
We can riff off that.
yeah, I kind of got into it a little bit, but that VR and that AR stuff, as of lately, I've been looking a lot at the Oculus stuff because I think that that has like the biggest market capture of everything. It's a little bit cheaper, a little bit lower grade, and me, I'm kind of the guy who wants, like, we're gonna have a computer, I'm gonna have some 3090s in it,
Gonna
and
go wild.
gonna go wild. But I think it's interesting. It's getting a little bit cheaper, and I'm interested to see where it goes, especially in augmented reality. Um, cars that are using heads up display on certain things, and they had Google Glasses a while back, but I'd really be interested to see that be just on an informational sense, try and expand that bandwidth and expand your inputs, in a real time, because VR I think is a huge thing for gaming, and they're talking about I believe it's PTSD patients, and working with them, and working through experiences and trying to find I guess healing to certain depressions and stuff like that, which I think is really great. Um, but on an everyday level, I think that AR and I guess expanding the amount of information that you're receiving in real time is something that I have big hopes for, because I think that, in the future, obviously we have our phones connected to us all the time. I believe that Elon Musk said something about that, like we're already cyborgs because that thing never leaves your side. So,
Not at all. Yeah.
I think that the next step is widening that bandwidth and that information that's flowing in on a real time basis, and I think that will, if it's brought to the workplace and stuff like that, I think that that could make huge leaps and bounds in the medical field, industrial,
Okay. Yeah.
petroleum,
No. So let's
like
let's
that.
play
So
with that one. Where do you what industry do you think it's like hurt the most by this, and what industry do you think like gets benefited like tremendously by this kind of technology that's coming in with AR? You talked about like the auto industry with heads up displays and things like that. What's your kind of take on those? What's your biggest winner and loser, I guess, to say in the industry wars here?
loser is hard to say. I think that everyone, just based on, you know, it's kind of like, okay, the book is kind of going away because we have electronic books or something like that. But I think it's hard because everyone seems to, if it's spread wide enough, everyone will be a winner, just because of information flow. And I think that's super important. Obviously, the most important change of our lives and of our I guess we're in the computer age. So of our age is computers, and the hugest thing about computers is they can compute, so they can give us more information faster. And I think that that is kind of a basis for everything. And obviously we have the phones, so now all of our information is coming faster, and it's all with us in our hands. So I think that everyone is kind of a winner, but I think the biggest winners, I would say, from a non-financial point, would probably be, I want to say, if they implement it correctly, is medical field. And I think that that's huge because a lot of times the information just isn't there. And they have things where they're trying to work on running charts for doctors in real time while they're looking at patients when people come into the ER, getting feedback from biometrics and stuff like that. And those seconds really count, and I think that that will really help. And just analysis in general is, okay, I'm getting all of these symptoms. I have a patient who has, X amount of symptoms, and they're feeling this way. And when they eat like this, they feel like this. And if we give them this medication, they feel like this. And I feel like, a lot of it is, the way I understand it, is the display in general, having that up while you're seeing what you're seeing in real time. And I think maybe it's biased just because it's something that I would like to see happen. But I do also think that that would be one of the biggest winners from, a non-financial standpoint of, for, I guess, just the world, or, society in general, is advancing the medical field. So
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest thing that would take that would be it's going to be the integration it has with voice. I mean, like there's Siri, there's Alexa, like Google, everything like that. Like those integrations need to kind of work together. Like you were saying, with doctors need to be able to talk out loud and then have the voice recognize, and then AR needs to project things like that up onto the whole field. Like that, their entire team needs to be able to see that real time instead of just the doctor seeing it. It has to be, there needs to be an integration where, like, I don't want to say group think is going to be a thing, but like collective consciousness needs to be able to pool everything together and do for the benefit of the patient.
yeah, I definitely agree. I think, especially in my field, in engineering and a lot of STEM fields, the one of the biggest things is improvement, and innovation doesn't happen in a vacuum. And a lot of times it's multiple ideas and different standpoints. And a lot of times when I see that we make progress at work, is when we have two people or three people or four people going back and forth, and they have opposing views and they have opposing thoughts and they think in different ways. And I think that those bring up the best ideas, because everyone is trying to find a hole in everyone else's. And then if they're not arguing against each other and working with each other, it's kind of like a pay it forward, where it's this tree that we have all these ideas, and off of this one idea that broke us through where we are, we can get five more from having multiple people. And I definitely agree in the way that a lot of times a doctor can work in a silo, has five patients, and it works right within what they're doing. And then, yeah, they'll talk to the other doctors around them. But I definitely think that in real time, working in emergency situations or just in non-emergency situations, trying to transfer those things in real time, because I feel like where, at SpaceX and at NASA, or, I guess I just use those examples as, the most advanced technology that we have. They're together all the time. They're intertwining all the time. Different modules and different sectors are working together and pulling off of different things. So I think that if we get to use that as a modularity to promote communication in between people and make it seamless. And I think the big thing is interpretation as well. Is, you know, I can tell you one thing and you can perceive it as another, and you see in multiples. If I tell you one thing, we can play a game of telephone in just the way that you're understanding. So I think that having that clear cut communication is a huge thing. So everyone's on the same page and everyone's coming from the same idea.
I think it definitely kills a lot of those, I guess, the giant apps that we have now, like Slack and other management kind of team collaboration apps, because like once you said, once things are projected in that certain way, unless they can, I mean, unless they're the ones that are finding a way to really make this all happen, they're going to get crushed by this. Because like you said, once things are put out in the open and once collaboration is right in front of your face, there's no need to put your face down in your phone or in a computer in an app. Everything's right in front of you.
Yeah, and on a more, I guess, not sentimental necessarily, but on a more social note, I'd really hope that that would bring us out. Like you said, no one's looking down at their phones and into their phones, and I would hope that, you know, not that we're going to all be walking around with Google Glass, but I'd really hope that that seamless and that way of communicating the information that's coming into you, you know, especially because everything's going to stem from our source of information, whether that be text messages, calls, social media, any interactions with other humans over the internet. I would really hope that that would make a more seamless display to where people are bringing their heads up and people are seeing people in real time, human, human, and that we get a little bit more social. Because I think a lot of times, you know, we're not getting let this tangent go, but I think a lot of times we get too into our phones and then we're not working on our actual social interactions. And I feel like that human to human and going back and forth face to face creates a lot of great ideas on any field.
Oh yeah, especially like I was speaking with another colleague the other day about like do you prefer being in, it was more of a sense of like, do you think remote work has at any place within like smaller startups? And my take was that I think there's times where freelancers should have a role in certain startups and it could be beneficial, but I mean, from a lot of what I've seen, and from a lot of like consulting that I've been a part of, like if you're not in the office every day with these small teams, you're just not in the loop with what's happening at the speed that startups operate at. Like the biggest thing they have on big companies is speed. And if you're remote and just in your phone all the time, you're not going to be able to keep up with the big companies like that.
Yeah, I think big companies, they run everything is seamless, and you know it's a lot easier to put out the infrastructure to make that happen. But I do think that there is something to be said about when you're in a startup, how important it is to, you know, we talk about it all the time, and you know it's probably one of the best things to say in an interview, but that teamwork, that integrating face to face with people and getting small little nuggets of information from someone else that, you know, everyone's necessarily working on their own thing, but working together and getting small little things that tie that all together in a way that you are not necessarily like a hive mind, but working as much together as one as possible. And I think that's huge for startups is just that communication and keeping everything extremely streamlined, because at the end of the day, you know, you're going to get crushed by something that has more fiscal ability and larger infrastructure.
Yeah, especially when it comes to things that are more on like the personal side. Like it's easy to like, as you know, like working from home, it's easy to ignore emails like when you don't want to talk to someone, or it's like when you're in the office with those people like that, like there's only 10 people, a few developers on like a small team, like you can't walk away from your problems. And it's faster to get those things out of the way while you can when you're in that smaller kind of ecosystem compared to being with a big company, dilly-dallying around with things, not meeting deadlines, and kind of just saying, oh, this person didn't approve it, so I can't do that. With startups, there's no excuse to not have things done.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that one of the biggest things is like you said before, um, the it's hard to put the exact word on it, but the interface barrier, I guess you could say, and translation in text, I think is a huge thing, especially in business. A lot of times, I think the biggest thing that started out was, we're kids and we're texting girls and like, oh, they didn't understand what I was saying or something like that.
I
But
meant to say this, but she didn't take it like that. And it's like, oh man, here we go.
Yeah, here we go. And we're starting on this. But I think that when it comes down to it, when you're trying to make money and really streamline everything, especially in a startup, that is everything. Uh, for example, at work, the people who I talk to the most are at work. And if someone leaves and teleworks, I will preferably ask someone who is not as qualified, but is there in person so we can have a back and forth conversation that is more productive and I get more information out of it rather than trying to email someone, trying to text someone, going back and forth and having that disconnect over text.
Yeah, I mean, it's more hands-on, like you said, less qualified, but they can at least get in there with you in the trenches and show you like, hey, this is what I'm trying to say to you. This is what I'm trying to do here. Like, this is how it's supposed to happen. And compared to you shooting someone a text and being like, hey, can you chat for 2 minutes? I'm lost with this. And they like, oh, I'm playing with my kids. Sorry, I'll talk to you in like an hour. And it's like, okay, well, that didn't help me at all.
Yeah. Or even worse than that, you're sitting there and, okay, do you see this? You got this document up, right? And you're like looking at, okay, yeah. Are you there? Are you on page 5? Yeah. Okay. No. Page 5B. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then Zoom's breaking up. It's going in and out. Like, there's too many complications with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, okay, I'll get into my thing that I was going to say, that the business or startup that I had that I thought would be kind of big in the future here would be more of like an online curation of products that are just tailored towards like a men's haberdashery or like a men's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Not safe haven or hideaway. It's just like the men's treasure chests, I guess you would say. Like, men are getting more into taking care of themselves within grooming and how they smell and just the products that they use in general. Like, there's the biggest thing that I thought would work out as well would be make it subscription based, and then you can throw in different cigars or types of bourbon, things like that. There's as well as kind of skincare, and there's just so many things that men are now looking after that could be a massive boom in the future here.
Yeah, I definitely agree, especially when you bring up people or men in general are taking more care of themselves. You're seeing more people and more men, I guess, who are more well-rounded. It's very interesting to see because I think a lot of times people fit in these niches, I'd say back in the day or whatever. But nowadays you can see someone who, he goes out and he rides dirt bikes, but then he comes home and he blow dries his hair and he puts product in his hair. We all know that guy.
Shout out to Trevin Fit. Now that we have him on, we'll get him on soon here, but we all know that guy. Like you said, he takes care of his nails. He takes care of how he smells. Like he knows what type of cologne he wears. He knows the type of undershirts and underwear that fits him just right. Those are the things that the details that you look at that just you never think certain people would, but now more and more men are caring what socks they have on or what hand lotion they're using because their wife says their hands are too rough or like their feet look crusty. And there's so many different things that men are now starting to pay attention to. And it's not just a a women's market anymore, especially with facial care and acne and things like that, that you want your skin to be soft and you don't want to, I guess, age so and so. You want to keep it, you want to look as good as you can for as long as you can.
Yeah, long-term care is becoming this really big thing, obviously, on every front. I'm seeing a lot of people, a lot more people in general, getting blood panels, going to endocrinologists, and taking care of themselves on a vitamin basis. Taking their
Yeah.
vitamins every day, eating something that's a little bit better. Obviously, I definitely think in the past 10 years, 10 to 15 years, there's been a huge transformation in fitness. And I think that it's something to be said. Obviously, in the 70s and the 80s, you have these bodybuilders and all this huge stuff. But I think a lot of people, the everyday person, is getting really into taking care of themselves on a normal basis and in a normal way. Nothing fancy or anything like that, but I think you're seeing that more common. And going back to focusing back on men, you definitely see, especially men who are, driven and want to be successful. It kind of spills out onto every front. And now that that information is getting out there, they are more inclined to take those things on. And I think that, clothes is something that I believe that, even back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s was kind of like a little grunge area, popularity wise. But I do think that everyone is kind of dressing better on a normal basis, wanting to look their best and wanting to be their best. And I think that that is kind of the encompassment of where this is going, and where that market is going. I definitely agree.
Well, there's billion-dollar companies that are out there like Whoop and Aurora Ring. There's companies that are out there that are capitalizing on this, and like you said, making it that much more attainable for the everyday person to watch what they're doing. Especially like with, we talk about men's health. Like there's, I don't know if you have family history or something, things like that, but like obviously if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the color of my skin here. You can see like heart conditions run within the Black community. So it's a thing that I have to worry about because my father is a little bit overweight. His dad had heart issues. So it's like, maybe I have to worry about that. So now it's more of a thing of like, I have to worry about all these things. And it's something where I take into consideration of me. That's why I run every day. And like, there's different reasons for everybody. But like you said, like, I don't know if you have any family history like that, but it takes all of us to kind of get involved and do all that.
Yeah, I think you should be worried, talking to Vince overweight, he might be coming after you. But yeah, I think that's a huge thing, is more aware of where we're going in our lives, and where we're coming from is a big thing too. Like you said, your dad and your grandpa, big, I guess, information that's coming in is bigger to you than I think people originally think. And I think that I necessarily haven't had any. My parents are relatively healthy. My mom has rheumatoid arthritis, so that's something I need to necessarily be a little bit concerned about. But for the most part, healthy. But even that, like you said, even when people are healthy, I think that they're trying to be as healthy as they possibly can, and putting the work in, because they feel like at the end it's going to pay dividends when, we're 90, 95 and still moving and still going strong. So I think that a lot of people are putting in that investment and that time into themselves now, because they're realizing, hey, at the end of the day, if I smoke cigarettes, when I was 21 and did that, for 40 years, that's not going to do well for me. But even if I do normal, I feel like I could do better. And I think that that's kind of the mindset that's driving everything, is everyone wants to be the best they can be, whether that's on the surface or not. I feel that it's a really great thing that everyone's getting more into trying to know themselves and trying to understand where they come from, and what that might be in the future for them.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess great ending point on that topic. Like there's the focus that men have on now, they're not just men now to kind of go off of that, but like people in general that just care about their well-being and want to extend their life a little bit longer and have a more livable life. Like there's shows that like My 600-Pound Life, like there's people out there that can't even get out of bed because of the things they did when they were younger. So it's, some people might call you a little bit crazy getting up and running, or like going to the gym that early, or getting on a bike that early. But at the end of the day, when I'm moving and I look like Herschel Walker, he's almost in his 60s now. Like the guy looks phenomenal.
He looks fucking great.
Like he fought in an MMA fight last year at like 55, 56 years old. Like he looks like an animal.
Yeah. And I think, like, on that same note, you know, people calling you crazy if you're waking up at 5 a.m. I do, you know, think that everyone has their own pace, but it's interesting to see that it's not so polarizing anymore. You're not seeing Arnold on one side and, you know, the largest person in the world, or all these massive people on the other. I think that in general, there's becoming more of a medium, and everyone's kind of sitting in that middle ground where in general, they're thinking about their diet. They're thinking about, hey, you know, I should move today, or hey, I should go stretch today. And I think that's a huge thing too, is just being more aware and having that information of back in the day that they're going and lifted weights and everything. But today, you know, you have bodybuilders who are doing yoga and they're doing ballet, and, you know, that's maybe the extreme end, but it's cool to see that people are more aware of their bodies. And I think it's just great that it makes me happy that we're moving towards a more healthier point.
I agree. So of course we have to kind of taper down here and end it off with a more interesting question. And it's got to be, what is your guilty pleasure? There's always something that you don't want to say that you watch or that you're doing, but you do it. And I'll start off with mine. And mine is a friend. Obviously, you know, my friend Paul got me into this stupid YouTube family. They're called the Royalty Fam. It's like a fake reality TV YouTube series, and it's these two Hispanic people. Well, one's Middle Eastern and the woman's Hispanic, and they have a kid. They have two kids and a dog, and they live in LA. And it's the most awfully scripted. If anyone else out there watches, like, you have to come and let me know what you think about it. But it is, Tuck, you have to watch it, bro. Like, once you get in, you'll get sucked in. I'm telling you.
Oh no.
It's a train wreck, bro. I'm telling you.
Oh God.
What is yours? There's no, you can't even comment on it. I know it's that bad.
Yeah.
I get it.
I don't know. I don't know. Oh God. Well, I don't know. I think it's really hard to say. I think a lot of times, I think it splits off into two ways, and I'll start with the better one and I'll end with the worst one.
Okay, first, you can't blame your girlfriend for you. You can't say, oh, I watched this because my girlfriend watches it. No. Come on. We all know it's you.
Not a bachelor guy. So the first thing I'd say is I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and it sounds a little bit more boring than everything else. But I think it's really nice because, you know, you're getting into some subject or you're doing something else. You know, obviously everyone knows the ease of listening to podcasts or audiobooks, but one of my guilty pleasures is, like, you know, when I'm alone, you know, walking, you know, biking, doing some sort of light exercise. I think one of the things I really like to do is find an audiobook. A lot of them are trying to do like self-help things, you know, and understanding yourself, or understanding economics, or something more informational, and having that, and kind of just being in the zone of, you're getting your body going, and so your brain's moving, and just getting some information in. And I think those are probably parts that I really enjoy about my day or my week, is getting that alone time to where I can kind of focus and learn something. Because I think at the end of the day, what people get. Obviously people get endorphins from working out, but I think that one of the things I do get is when I feel like I learned something during a day, I really enjoy it. So that is the good side of things.
Everyone who listens to this podcast needs to roast this man right now. That is not a guilty pleasure. That is something we do on a daily basis. Podcasts every day to work. Audiobooks, same thing. This is not what we were looking for.
All right. I split it off into two. Oh gosh. Okay. So the other thing that I do like to do, it's Friday. Everyone knows it's Friday because I just said it, I guess. But what I really like to do on Fridays is I have this thing called Pizza Fridays. And every Friday I'll eat some pizza and I'll pick out some classic comedy like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation and just sit and veg. And I think it's just the cap of a week that like, hey, you know what? I worked my ass off and it's time to just sit back. And yet I hope I give the vision of someone laying, barely looking over the pizza on their chest and just like, okay, I can see the TV screen and just, face feeding this amazing pizza that we have down here. So,
well, people on YouTube got a phenomenal view of what that'll look like. But if you're listening, you definitely got an idea of it. It's just as bad as it sounds. It looks like what's the Globo Gym guy at the end of Dodgeball movie where he's sitting there with the fried chicken and just knocked out cold, man.
Yeah. Whiteman.
That's not a terrible guilty pleasure. Like I said, I'm not going on every single day watching 20-minute video of Royalty Fam. I mean, that's absurd. But like you said, there's certain times where you're like, you know what, I can check on what's going on with the fam, and you have the same thing of just, you know what, it's Friday, I might have some pizza today. I did good during the week, and I'm gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, throw some ranch on that and just go to town. Probably didn't sound the best, but
Yeah, I mean, our next episode, we can probably jump into a little more about like what our exercise and like what our diets look like, if that interests anyone. But I think it'd be fun to kind of track a little bit of what we do and how we meal plan, things like that. As far as how it affects like our sleep schedule, and then we should definitely do a little more research into crypto because we both have no idea what's happening in crypto, even though the whole world apparently knows what's going on.
All we know it's going up right now, but what goes up must come down, except for Tesla stocks.
Apparently, only Tesla stock keeps going to the moon, but who knows about that as well.
Mars, 2024,
now the world's richest
baby.
Man. On that note, though, it's been a pleasure. This was Emmett Ross, Tucker deCamp. Say your final goodbyes. You can also give yourself a little plug if you want. Social media, let you know where they can find you. I'll leave everything in the description below, so I don't know if you really need to or want to. We can discuss that here on after.
All I got to say is thanks for having me on, man. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, dude, it's absolute pleasure. Cannot wait to do it again. This is Emmett again, Tucker, Outside the Lines. Look forward to seeing you guys again. Cheers.